even know if you send me an email. If I'm not at home, I ain't getting it. If I'm not sitting in front of my computer, I'm not getting it. And there we are. We are live on YouTube. Good morning, guys. Happy Thankful Thursday. And hey, Roger, welcome, welcome. All right, turning this over to you, the Thankful
I'll do
Thursday
it.
crew.
I'll go ahead.
All right, Lori, yay.
Thankful Thursday. I'm so glad to be back, missing 2 weeks because of my car repairs. I missed you guys, so good morning and welcome, Roger. I don't think I know you. I'm Lori, or my name is Lori. I'm not Lori. Dove, Lynn, Deb, Cher, and Sharon. So we'll start off with lesson 233. I give my life to God to guide today. And the workbook says, Father, I give you all my thoughts today. I would have none of mine. In place of them, give me your own. I give you all my acts as well, that I may do your will instead of seeking goals which cannot be obtained and wasting time in vain imaginings. And I was thinking this morning about that word my, and that all of our problems come when we believe in that concept of my or mine. You know, as try to meditate and try to still the mind, which never is stilled, uh, I notice what the thoughts are. They're always about whatever problems coming up or whatever there is to do that day or whatever challenges are there or whatever things I want to happen. And they're all related to that word my or mine. And if we let go of that sense of personal attachment, personal ownership, personal identity, problems solved. So that's been the focus lately is, it's been that focus for quite some time. And as every ego attachment drops away, it's more and more and more free. It's like, oh, thank you, God. So this lesson is wonderful. I would say I would change it just a little bit to take it one step further. Instead of I give my life to God to guide today, I give the life to God to guide today. Or, I just look at life. There's no me, there's no personal separate me. There's only life expressing. There's only God expressing. And the same thing happens when you let go of the my. You don't see a my or a dream figure with anybody else either. It's not personal. All of these dream figures are just one figure after another, after another, after another. They're all just bodies, and it's not personal. And so, all that judgment of what other people are doing or what their lives look like, their own personal lives look like, it just all fades away. And it's the freedom. That's the freedom, is when you know that you are as God created you, not a separate person that you made. And that's what this whole course is about, letting go of the sense of the person that we made up. And I am just so, so grateful for that. And always realize that when the heart, and I don't even want to say my heart, when the heart space is filled with gratitude, then I'm on the right track. Because again, there's no me that's done anything. There's no me that did anything in the past. There's no me that's doing anything right now or doing anything in the future. It's just life, and life arises and life comes up. And so breathing into that heart space, that's something that is amazing to me, that I never did that before the last year. And it has made all the difference in the world. And I was on the Course of Love group Monday night, and they were talking about this one woman named Karen. She said that she feels like the heart space, that heart chakra, that heart center is the quantum field. And I thought, well, that's an interesting way to look at it. And I'd never really connected it before, but I'd always felt grateful for things. And but it was a lot of it was in my head. And when it came down to the heart and out of the head, it changed everything. In one of the non-dual books I was reading, I think it was John Klein, he was saying bring everything down below the neck. Bring all your thoughts or all your sensations, just keep them below the neck so that you're not in your head, because the head is the brain, right? And the brain is the ego. And that's the separating, dividing, organizing, categorizing, figuring things out. How do I make my way in this world? My way, my separate way, my separate life. What do I need to do to survive? And so bringing it down below the neck changed me. And it's like, duh, only took me 40 years to get there. But I'm so grateful for all the mind training of the course to get me there, because I needed that theoretical framework. Like Jesus talks about, the theoretical framework of the text is what helped me, and the workbook and the manual for teachers helped me to get to where I could trust and be in the heart. Because without that, it's like, no, my heart's just going to break completely in this world. And that's another thing that came this morning. And I just love these new perceptions. They're so liberating. This sense of having been in grief and sorrow my entire life, and I've thought this before, but it's going in a little deeper now. It's not my grief. It's not my sorrow. It's the collective grief and the collective sorrow of the ego thought system for what we made up and for how we thought we separated from God and then created all these catastrophes that we have. But this sorrow that I have felt since childhood, and thinking that it's mine, that it's part of my identity, part of my persona, part of this dream character's path. And it's like, well, that's not personal. It's not personal. Thank you, God. It's not personal. Oh, how sweet, Roger. I love seeing that. Roger's wife just came and gave him a kiss. It's just so sweet. I love that type of affection and preciousness.
Have a good meeting, y'all.
So anyway, back to the personal sense of sorrow and grief. What a relief. So I was doing some of the Sedona method releasing on that, like check inside and see, does that feel like your sorrow, your heartbreak? And oh, yeah, okay, so let that come up. And then could you let go of thinking it's yours? Yeah. Could you just let that energy run through the body rather than thinking that you're attached to it and it's your story? So that's where I'm at today. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sharon.
That was great, Lorri. That was a great opening. Hi, Roger. I'm on my phone, so I'm going to go off camera. All right. This lesson today is a complete surrender. And what that means for me is that any thought is a block. Now, I mean, the mind is going to think, and they're not our thoughts. None of these thoughts are my thoughts. They never were, because it was over the moment that it happened. So this morning, I want to thank Doug for what he sent out. Ideas don't leave their source. And I spent the morning just listening to Kenneth Wapnick. And it's so obvious at this point that there's only light here. This incredible light that we know is a reflection of heaven, because we're still nothing, our other life is still going on. But when I look at this lesson, I say, wait a minute, this lesson is all surrender, because God is in charge all the time. Now, I mean, to give that a description here, it's the essence of God that's actually doing everything, and that's what we really are. We are life force. The character in the dream is totally meaningless. And my husband and I are helping in a group learning how to be grief facilitators. Cliff and I met in Al-Anon, like, I guess it was like 15 years ago. In any case, we both somehow had a miracle happen and got together because we were friends the first, in the beginning. And he has been missing group because we opened an Al-Anon here a different day because it closed during COVID. So we opened another room and nobody came. I mean, it was almost because it was Friday night. We might have gotten 2 people. So we were there always to support everyone. And we realized that's just not Al-Anon. Just like A Course in Miracles is really self-study. I mean, everybody's path is the same and different. So what I believe belief altogether is ridiculous because the knower is here. The knower is the quiet center. The knower knows that we are free. And the knower just guides us gently. This is such a gentle book, but I didn't think so when I was in the ego thinking I'm formed. And, the way this whole process is unfolded for me has been really an honest looking about if I was in grief, I spoke about it. If I was in anger, I spoke about it. Now, that's really what, if you had a lab and you were doing a science experiment, you'd want to teach yourself the trials, right? So for me, I had many trials, but you know, it's so simple, but that the cobwebs of the love awareness blocks that we all have are starting to fall away. So the seeing is deeper. On Tuesday, I was reading a book called The Cosmic Joke with Lynn, and it's just so simple when we realize that all the words in the course, it used to bother this mind because of all the judgments I had. But again, I don't even know if those judgments were mine because we're in the sonship. We are never, ever not in the sonship. We are all inside looking at a picture of nothing. And I couldn't say that until I really completely knew that none of this is true. And sometimes if anger comes up, because it still does, um, it's not a big deal because it's not my anger. It's not my rage. There was a beautiful, like, there's a resonance in all of us that knows that we are much more than people. And, there was always this knowing in me when I would go to weddings, and in Jewish religion, we dance, we hold chairs up, and I would love to life l'chaim. And what that is salute to life. Life is God. You can't have anything without that power of love's presence. Now, there's still judgments from the ego, but see, ego's just talking to itself, right? So it's not the thoughts that this mind needs to get rid of, it's the belief in those thoughts. And belief is starting to thin out. And things are simpler. So I guess I went off topic a little when I said my husband, we went to this group for grief because to help with grief because he likes groups and there isn't anything here. We have it in State College, so we're going to start to go in September, like just because I think it's really important at a time where there's so much division and hate that turning to God, there can't be anything more powerful. And when we were in this group, this was a beautiful group of people that are helping out at this thing called um, it's a heart thing. It's all about helping your sister or brother, meaning that when somebody dies, I can see them in true compassion. But compassion on this level, which is level 2, is necessary in this. It's not wrong. But if you hold them in the highest good, meaning you see them that they cannot be hurt, nothing can happen to them, and when the ego is in the front, it gets annoyed because it really has no idea what's going on here. And it does believe there's something happening. And so it's the stillness, just bringing myself back to the stillness. And the most important relationship is the one I have with the infinite self, right? Because it's the only thing that's real. Everything else is my projection, including the character that's speaking. So the gentleness that I feel these days is coming organically because there's never been a Sharon, you know. And I had this whole idea that waking up was going to be bells and whistles, and it's really just ordinary. It's an ordinary situation. I feel at this point that to be still is my natural state. It's no longer demanding me to have a million things to do or a million ideas or whatever that is, because I see clearly that it's just this. It's just this. It's isness as our only business. Anyway, over to you, Doug.
All right. That was terrific. Both you and Lorri. And, whenever I hear you speaking, Sharon, I always say, you have come such a long way, really. Your sharing is really superlative and full of light. As you said, it's the light. Okay. So today's lesson is 233. And I put a picture up there that if you want to use it, that's the picture for lesson 233. I give my life to God to guide today. Seems to be a triple alliteration. I give to God to guide. 3 G's. Anyway, Ken Wapnick commentary, which I usually always start with, is right up here on the board. And the chat, if you can't see, it came in late. I'll just put it up here again. I'm always interested in what Ken has to say. And this is what Ken says on today's lesson. If A Course in Miracles were true, then everything around us is false. Wow. It's a nice way to start. So everything you see is exactly what it says in lesson number 1. Nothing I see here means anything. Why? Because it's not real, it's not true, it's make-believe, it's wallpaper, it's shadows, it's things that are unlike the love of God. God doesn't make things, doesn't have anything to do with form, and of course the world is form. So continuing what Ken has to say, our upsets, as well as what we believe, big word, believe, big lie, will bring us happiness and peace. Yeah, so we're believing in all the things that have nothing to do with peace, happiness, joy, love, has everything to do with getting and doing and having. Those are the 3 words that the ego lives. That's its religion. I gotta do. I gotta get so I can have. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to get. You already have everything. Yes, being and having are the same. What God creates is whole, sustained by the love of God. Whole, not I need. There's no neediness in the love of God. So Ken continues and says, thus we speak again of recognizing with gladness and gratitude. I guess that's kind of another double G that goes with the triple G of the question. There's a lot of gladness and gratitude that we are wrong and Jesus is right. By yours truly, Ken Wapnick. So, reminds me of the idea of surrender. Now we know that Helen never liked the word surrender, so that's why in the Course in Miracles it never appears even once. But it uses other words like willingness, and that's really what we are. We are the will of God. God's will and my will is the same will. That's why my only prayer is, thy will be done. Our will is one. Our will is done. So it's the undivided will of the sonship, the undivided will of the sonship, which is the strength and the love and the peace of God. And of course, you can't see this with eyes. Ego's eyes can't see at all. It says you have eyes that don't see, you have ears that don't hear, and a brain that doesn't think. As Ken Wapnick says, what do? Just keep on reading? You don't even know what the hell you're reading. So we have to say, I really don't know what anything is for, which turned out to be my mantra lesson for the last, I guess, 21 years, since 2004 when we started ACIM Gather. And lesson 25, I do not know what anything is for, basically starts out with only purpose is meaning. So there's no meaning in this world, but purpose is meaning, but purpose is a property of mind. Now, you look in the world, you don't see mind. Well, I got a mind. Yeah. Well, his ego definitely has a mind, and its purpose is exactly what we said earlier. I got to do in order to get so I can finally have and win and be better. I don't care about anyone else as long as I get and do what I want to do and get and be. So that's why the world looks the way it does. I mean, he uses the word insane 250 times, something like that in the course. The world is certifiably insane. I mean, he tells you that you're in an insane asylum. I mean, suppose you realize that you were hallucinating and everything you saw was an hallucination. It's a mirage, an illusion, a dream. What would you do? Well, first you got to become aware, which means I am not what I think I am, which is an ego. I got to start saying, hey, there's nothing my holiness cannot do. Yeah, my holiness is my salvation. And the word holy comes from the word whole. And the word whole is another word synonym for totality. And I think one of my favorite, I think Happy wants to get into the act. Says, I want to be in the act too. I'm so happy. Yes, I'm so happy. So anyway, there's that section of the course I really love. It's called The Totality of the Kingdom. And it's really a great section. It's chapter 7, section 7. And I heartily recommend reading it. It's the one that literally says, if you deny a brother a blessing, you've just denied yourself. The ego is always in denial. That's how the ego was made. We denied ourselves. So the formation of denial is ego. And the ego plays its part perfectly by denying others, which the Course uses the word sacrifice. And sacrifice must be used 1,000 times in the Course. And that's pretty much what Ken says. Listen, actually, it's not Ken. I'm sorry. The Course says in lesson 187, paragraph 6, he says, sacrifice remains the one idea behind all pain and sorrow, behind all loss, lack, poverty, starvation, and even death. I used to say, my God, what the hell is sacrifice? That is the cause of all that stuff. And I remember that was one of the only questions I ever asked Ken. What's your take on sacrifice? Well, if you listen to Ken's workshops, and most of you know that we listen here every single morning from like 5:30 to 8:30, Monday through Saturday. I mean, he says it over and over again. Sacrifice is just choosing one over the other. Yeah, me first. I don't care about you. That's why this entire course is about equality, wholeness, sameness, oneness. I mean, in the justice of God, chapter 25, he says, listen, all together or not at all. So if you leave one brother out, you know, you just denied yourself, because the truth is there's only one. And in this world, it looks like there's many. Yeah, you leave one out, you just denied yourself. So at the end of that section, chapter 7, section 7, there's a very powerful quote, and goes like this. You know, he knows that people who are reading the Course in Miracles want to understand. I don't understand this yet, but I will. So he gives you an answer. The ego doesn't understand the answer, of course. So if you really want to understand totally, you must be willing to understand totality. Ego says, what the hell is totality? So that's wholeness. That's oneness. That's the undivided will of the sonship. Because the ego only sees divided wills. That my will, your will, somebody else's will who I don't give a damn about. You got to laugh at all this stuff. And with that, I'll just turn it back on over to anyone who wants to share. And if no one wants to share, Lorri, it's your mic.
Okay. Well, I want to welcome Sally and Bob Sears. They joined on. And what you were saying, Dove, you've really helped me with that concept of sacrifice, because you would always point to lesson 187. And I always thought it was interesting that 187 says, I bless the world because I bless myself. But then the entire lesson is about not believing in the idea of sacrifice. And so I just love that, though, because this whole world is sacrifice. And so to bless the world, we have to let go of that idea of sacrifice, because we look out there and go, man, all these people are hurting. All these people are having troubles. And yet, from the very minute we're born, it's sacrifice. What you were just saying, it's, choosing one over the other, what Ken said. And I watched that with these twin granddaughters of mine. They are such great teachers for me. I mean, I can just see the whole ego thought system just being rolled out, one level, one idea after another, after another, after another. And it's with any child development, but I've never had my daughter was an only child, and she was a very easygoing, meek and mild kind of child. Well, these children are normal. They're normal, strong-willed kids. And watching how they get these ideas as their brain develops and as they get smarter, they also get meaner. They get more, like, for example, we would take these protein bars, and I would break it in half and give one piece to one and one to the other. And maybe 2 months ago, they didn't notice if one side was bigger than the other. But now, oh, they can see that the one piece is just a little bit bigger than the other one, and they want that one, of course. And so it's like, ew. And I've also noticed that as my grandchildren grow up, I don't like them as well, because they have these egos and they have these me, mine, I want this. So that's getting back to what I was saying earlier about every problem we have comes from this sense of me, mine, my. Because without that, I mean, before they had this sense of me and mine, it was really fascinating to watch these two little girls, because they would take each other's toys and not bat an eye, or they would come up to each other and one would pull the other's pacifier out of their mouth and put it in theirs, and then give the other one her pacifier. They would just switch pacifiers. And Or even if the other one didn't have a pacifier to give to the other one, they just pull it out of their mouth and take the other ones, and never a problem because it wasn't my pacifier. It wasn't my body. And so to watch this development, it's like, wow, no wonder we are all screwed up. And these children are in a loving home. They are very much loved. They have all their needs met, and yet they're still little savages because the ego is a savage. So it's just, getting away from judging that whole ego thought system, because I really judged the world. I used to just judge the world so much, like, God, it's just such a mess, such a mess, such a mess. I can't stand it. People are so stupid. Well, yeah, we are, because the ego is, it just is. And we made it up, and I made it up. I chose it. And now I'm saying, oh, I don't have to believe in it. And I can have this compassion and go to, like what Dove was saying, if what Ken Wapnick said, if the course is true, then everything we see is false. And that's lesson 1 and 2. And I am just so grateful for that awareness, because I don't know how I would survive without it. I would just be a mess like I used to be, and I still am, but I'm not as big a mess as I used to be. And I'm grateful for that, because there's just not as much ego attachment. And then I loved what you had to say, Sharon, of it's obvious that there's only light. Well, that shows where your consciousness is. It's obvious that there's only light. Well, it's not obvious to 99.9% of people out there that there's only light. It's obvious to you because that's your spiritual awakening, and you see that now. And I just think that is so beautiful. And like Dove said, I echo that. I mean, I knew you when, and you knew me when. Yeah, you're putting a heart up there. It's like, oh, we were messes. We were hot messes because we believed our feelings. We believed those feelings that we had, all that anger, all that rage, all that passion, and all the compassion, and all the grief. We believed they were ours. And you got to the place where it's like, it's not my rage. And that's where I got to too, that it wasn't my anger and my rage. But I'm only now getting to the place of, oh, it's not my grief. And I remember thinking that a couple months ago and actually working with that. And then I lost it. And a family member died. And I didn't have any of that sense of it's not mine, because I just went down the tubes with that. But coming back out of it and going, oh, yeah, it's not my grief either. Coming back to work with that. And Bob Sears, I don't know if you want to be called Dino or Dino James, Dino James, awesome observation. I am an only with no children of my own, so that is an experience I never had. Bob, okay. Yeah, and like I didn't have it when my daughter was growing up. And the other thing that's interesting is my daughter and her father and I were divorced, and he just potty trained her over a weekend without even consulting me when she was 2. And I'm like, well, thanks a lot for including me in that. But anyway, so I never went through the potty training thing. Well, I've been watching the potty training thing going for months and months and months. And how these little kids were scared to go potty. They were scared to poop in the potty. And Bob, you're putting a laughing thing there. I had no idea. So it's like Freud was really onto something. I mean, he has been denigrated about the potty training thing, and oh, that, Freud's crazy and blah blah blah. But he was right about a lot of things when he says, it's all about sex and aggression. It is. It is. So I have a greater appreciation of Freud, one, through the course, but also through watching my grandchildren go through potty training. And the other thing, too, is when I read this primer of Freudian psychology about 10 years ago, I swear I felt like I was reading A Course in Miracles. It was all about the ego development and learning to have the distinction of yourself and others, and learning and memory and perception. And I'm going, wow, these are all the words that Helen used in A Course in Miracles, that Jesus used and reinterpreted in light of the ego thought system. I'm like, wow, Freud was really, I mean, like I said, he's been denigrated, but he really had the foundation down. So anyway, seeing the potty training with the kids and how proud they are when they finally poop in the potty, and they're so frightened of it, and it's this major accomplishment. And it's so I can see that it could be this control issue with the parents, like, you got to poop in the potty. No, I'm not going to, and what do we have? We have that with God. No, I'm not going to. God, I am not going to do what you tell me to do or you suggest I do, even though, the little kids are like, my 4-year-old niece, she was 4 before she was potty trained. And she actually said to me, she's 7 now, almost 8. And she said, I like to poop in my pants. And I said that to her a couple months ago. I said, when you were 4, you told me I like to poop in my pants. She goes, eyes wide, and she goes, I did? And it's like, I like being in a body. I like living on this earth with all these wars and all this cancer and all these problems. I like living here. I like pooping in my pants. It's the same thing. And Dove, yeah, you're putting on the board. I'll do it my way. Sinatra, you know, I did it my way. And it's like, well, you can poop in your pants all you want. I think I'll do the course and let go of the concept of my thoughts, my feelings, my beliefs. It's like, no, thank you. I don't want my way. That's why this lesson, I give my life to God to guide today, or I just give life to God to guide today. Thank you, God. Thank you, God, that there is no my life. Thank you. I'm so glad I have no my life, even though that one's not totally undone yet, but it's loosening. It really is loosening. So, and Mickey and Mikhail just came on. Welcome. And I want to tell one little funny story, and then I'll let it go. And but the 3-year-old one granddaughter, she was taking a longer time to poop on the potty than the other one, the other twin. And so when I pull up to babysit, they come running up to my car, and she's looking at me. She goes, I pooped on the potty yesterday. And oh, it's like, oh, that's so wonderful. And then she goes, and when I poop on the potty today, you can see it if you want to. So it's like, and isn't that the truth about our lives? It's like, oh, we can see it if we want to. Let's just turn on the news. Let's just turn on any TV drama show. We can see all the crap, all the crap going on all over the world, and we love it. Oh my gosh. So I'm going to turn this over to Sharon now.
We are so, as a sonship, we are addicted to drama. Drama for this mind has always been a go-to. Like when I was a child, I watched, The Twilight Zone, Alfred Hitchcock. And my sister, this is before my younger sisters were born, we like to be scared. And that's true for all of us. We came here because we believed we were separate. And then there's this ridiculous fear of love because it's so encompassing, but it's just this beautiful light. Light has been coming out for a couple years now. And I knew that that was the light of God, but I was still stuck on it being my way, which is the song my father always sang. And he didn't know that there is no his way. It all seems to unfold the way it's supposed to. So recently I have taken a little life review and realized that I was waking up in Philadelphia. I I had so many times, and I did say this before, the eye is backwards. The eye is coming through us because it's just you know, we're avatars. We are just that. We are an avatar or an archetype, whatever word you want to use. So the room where I taught, and it's coming back to me so clear, was upside down. And I thought, well, now for sure I'm going to go into a mental hospital. That was the biggest fear for me because my mother had a lot of mental health issues. And my father, instead of being very, what's the word, compassionate, he would threaten her that she was going to go away to this place called Byberry. And he would have us all get in the car. And at the time, I think there's 4 of us, but we would go in the car, and then he would drive there to this place called Byberry and say, okay, you guys, do you want to go now? Because my mother couldn't control her emotions. That poor person that was my mother that played it, she had so much pain, physical, mental, everything. And yet in this dream, I needed her to do what she did to me, seemingly, because who better than to demonstrate the hate than your own mother? Because that's God. That's just God. It's all God. So the holiest thing was like, okay, I won't tell my mother. She'll get mad at me. I was very scared of her. And she was also very loving, by the way. But the mental health, that was the biggest thing for me, like through the time, because that's what I grew up with, the fear of mental health. And I have had mental health issues like depression and stuff. But all of that is all part of our breaking open. Everything is really for us. So as an ACIM student, I feel, and I say this a lot, but I feel like I've been in groups where people do not meet you where you are. And I can tell you through my path that when people did meet me where I was, it gave me more courage. To correct me only brought me back to the Sharon character who couldn't get it right in school. She had a learning disability, dyslexia, everything you could think of. And yet, the one thing that the character that I'm living in had was this tremendous ability to have empathy. Like I had empathy for my mother, but I had more fear. Now it's coming up like how much she gave me. She was just a fabulous mother in so many ways. And it was special love and special hate. So this book was really made for this mind. Of course, I went to other things too, because that's just what happened. The whole point here is that path gets so simple as we go on. And I did not read this book when Regina went into Waking Together. I stopped reading it because she was bringing so many teachers, and I thought, oh, I'll get there faster. No, The Course in Miracles is the book that's really undoing, at least for me, but it's a slow one. And the ego's impatient. It wants to wake up, so then it can create a story about how you're not awakening. And all of that. And then I had teachers that were very serious about waking up. That is not the way I would teach awakening. I would teach it through total acceptance, total love. Why do I say that? Because I know what it feels like for someone to correct you on something that you already know when you talk, that you're bringing up all the issues that you have, but you really feel that if you speak it, somehow everybody will have an understanding that you're working on yourself. You're a work in progress. That's all this is. I mean, there's nothing to get. Like the light came a couple of years ago, but now it's really out everywhere. I still see Sharon and I still fall. And yeah, there are preferences for sure, especially in the political scene. There is a lot of preferences. And you know what? I just give myself a pass because that's not me. That's the character. That's the character that wants a certain kind of food, that wants to please people, blah, blah, blah. And what's happened for this mind is everywhere I go now, I look at life as the teacher that it's teaching me what I'm not, right? If I come and I believe that this is terrible, look what's going on in our world, it's divided, all of that is just concepts, right? Because the higher self is here and has been for eternity, and then there's all these questions. And one of the things that I do love, and I think that I got away from it, and it probably served me at the time, because Jesus says, like, your greatest, now I have a mental block, but retreats are your greatest advances. So a lot of times when I would get on here and cry about my child, that was actually helping me. That was breaking open the fears, the concepts that I've held on to, the beliefs. And my son was instrumental in this awakening, as my mother was, and my ex-husband. And I feel like the spiritual ego's in there a lot. And so the careful stuff of just realizing that it's not special to have awakening, nothing special about it. It's ordinary. That's who we are. We're in the natural state. And I don't even like those words, because when you put that in the front, you're telling yourself you have somewhere to get. Well, meditate all day long. Well, that's not happening here. You know why? Because we are the meditation. We are the healing. We are pure, beautiful light. And for the next, how long this body's here, that's my intention. An intention is something, there's a force field, a contextual field that really knows, if you know you're the infinite, then by all means have an intention for love. And I had that yesterday, but I would say that it was kind of mixed up, because I went to school to sub and I had the wrong day. And here I am saying, why did they do that to me? I had to get out. That's the ego. So I called the school today to apologize, because I was wrong. And it's so easy now for me to apologize. It used to be so hard, because egos don't like to apologize. They just want to be right, But I think for the most part, most of us here, and probably all of us, have had a strong right mind, because the right mind's always here. It never goes anywhere. And you can't fail this. You can't, it's just so incredibly beautiful. The light on the trees, and the trees are just, it's like the avatar. The tree is part of it. It's all perfect. Now, when it came to the world, I loved the world when I was a child, because I enjoyed the fun things. And this is where I think I lucked out. I did have a lot of depression too, by the way. But my nature, and my mom told me this, she said, you have this sweetest nature. And I did. I was able to stay a lot in the right mind, and I didn't know that. I didn't know any of it. Here's Lynn writing, we tell babies that they are stinky, and we make faces and say, ooh, when we are changing diapers, poop is not wait, I can't read this. Poop, whatever. It's icky stuff. It's all God. Yeah, your poop is God. It's all God. That's all we're seeing is this magnificent unfolding of the sonship. That's all this is. And I think it's very hard for a teacher to teach this too, by the way. So anybody I had as a teacher was definitely challenged, because it's not like me teaching art, right? Because you can't make this happen. It's happening from within. In fact, everything is happening from within. So when I get upset at all from what's going on in the world, I go inward. Where am I still seeing separation, right? Because I want to be the light for the world. I want to be able to, actually, when I look at my life, I had a great life. I mean, it was an absolute perfect life for this character. And you wouldn't have heard me say that even a couple months ago, Victim consciousness has left. That's really what I'm saying now. And now we are entering into a different dimension. The dimension is, they call it a fourth or fifth dimension, but what that really is you just aren't as bothered. There's still a lot of belief in the sense that when somebody tells me a story, I do look at them as true compassion, but I also naturally like the personality of Sharon, because I tend to be very compassionate. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can't fail a dream. There's nothing wrong with anything that you do here. So I say give ourselves a pass. We are all that. We've never been in our body. This body is just temporal. And we all know this is false evidence appearing real. And with that, I'm going to say thank you, Lorri. Lorri, you sounded great today. And Dove sounded great. And everybody here. I just want to thank you for being here. Okay, over to you, Doug.
Well, it's Thankful Thursday. Everyone sounds great on Thankful Thursday. Okay. And every day. Yes, there's no division in time. Talking about divisions, I mentioned earlier the undivided will of the sonship is what we are. And I only heard it, I think it was yesterday from Ken Wapnick. And I just looked up, and it's in chapter 8, section 5. And that section is called, yes, the undivided will of the sonship. Can you imagine that? That's the name of the section, the undivided will of the sonship. And this is what it says. It says the undivided will of the sonship is the perfect creator being wholly in the likeness of God. That sounds very much like today's lesson 300, 233, which says, I give my life to God to guide today. Well, that's the same thing as I need do nothing. We share the same will. I am the will of God, the undivided will of God. It's not God's will and my will. There's one will. That's also true about all of us. It's not all of us separate kind of thing. It's one. Doesn't have 8 billion sons. We have one son, one mind, one son, one love, one. As Ken likes to say, Jesus wasn't good at math. He couldn't count past one. And that brings up another thing, by the way. If you listen to Ken, and of course, I want to say it again, he's on every morning here, thanks to Prudence, from around 5:30 to 8:30, Monday through Saturday. He'll say it over and over and over again. And sometimes people don't really hear it. I'm going to say it again now to reinforce the teachings of A Course in Miracles. He says there's nothing in A Course in Miracles about behavior. Nothing in A Course in Miracles about behavior. So we have a tendency to look out at a brother or sister in this world and say, oh, they shouldn't have done that because they know better. Huh? Done what? You're talking about behavior. Only the ego sees behavior. Only the ego uses the body's eyes and the body's ears and the body's brains to compute. So am I an ego or am I the son of God? That's really what this course is about. Awakening to your true identity. What am I? Am I this that sees other this? No, I am not a body. Yes, I am as God created me. Yes. That's pretty much, when it says choose once again, at the end of the course, chapter 31, section 8, I think it is, choose once again. He says, trials are but lessons that you failed to learn presented once again. So where you once made a faulty choice before, you now can make a better one and thus escape all pain that what you chose before has brought to you. Escape all pain. Can you imagine escaping all pain? Let's see. What would I do if I could escape all pain? What would I do? I mean, I'd go to the ends of the earth, wouldn't I? That's pretty much what you have to do. You have to give up thinking that this is who I am, and when I see my brother as a body, that's who they are too. And bodies misbehave. they say the wrong things, they do the wrong things. But wait a minute, am I judging my brother's behavior? Am I really? What does that make me? An ego, of course. Only the ego judges. Only the ego sees other egos doing wrong. Only the ego sees others as guilty. Only the ego sees blame, shame, and guilt as real. Only the ego thinks others should be punished. I ain't ever going to talk to them again, ever. Really? You got to laugh at this stuff. I mean, really, you got to really laugh. You take anything in this world seriously, you're out of your loony boom. I don't know where that word came from, but you got to be out of Looney Tunes to understand that this world is Looney Tunes. It's a cartoon. It's a make-believe world. It's an insane asylum. And everyone's pointing fingers. God doesn't make bodies with fingers. God doesn't make bodies. God doesn't make trash. God doesn't make garbage. Yeah, as a programmer in the early days of computers, they still have that same expression, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. If you see yourself as a body, you're seeing other bodies as garbage. Garbage in, garbage out. Hey, the ding dong bell says you're out of here. It's time for Zulma. Thank you all. Love you all.
Bye, everyone. Happy Thankful Thursday.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you all.
guys.
Bye, everyone. I love you.
Oh,
Bye-bye.
bye. Well, I love your picture, Sally. It's really cute.
Oh, thank you. That's my dream.
Yeah,
That's my dream in the dream.
you're dreaming the dream. Yep. All right.